Welcome, algebra class. This is a lesson on properties of numbers. None of these properties are going to be very hard. Some are going to be review, but our book has them all in this one section, and so I want to go through them real quickly. Okay? There are four properties that it talks about that are properties of equality. And again, none are very hard to understand. I'm not going to make you memorize the specific name of the property, but here they are. Let's go through them real quick. First one is called the reflexive property. Get ready for a brain buster. It says A equals A. Yes, I know. You know, it's kind of like, just think reflection like in a mirror. If you look in the mirror, you see yourself, the reflexive property. There's a property called the symmetric property. And it basically says that if A equals B, you know what symmetry means, right? It means both sides are the same, or they're reflections of each other, kind of. So if A equals B, then B equals A. Yes, I know, I'm glad you're sitting down. It's amazing. Next one's called the transitive property. It's kind of like the word transition. So if A equals B and B equals C, there's like a transition here, then A equals C. Yes, astounding. And lastly is a substitution problem, or a substitution property, sorry. It says if A equals B in any kind of equation, then everywhere where you see A, you can stick in B and it's going to be the same. You can substitute B for A. Those are at the very beginning, and we just went through those quickly because they're not very hard. Then there's going to be a set of properties that have to do with what's called identity. Just think about the word, what identity means. Just ponder it for a moment. And I think a famous actor might show you just a little bit. Okay? Here it is. Here we are. Gentlemen, I'm sure you know where this is. This is my identity. Me looking at myself in a mirror. Identity. Wasn't that amazing? Yeah. Identity is just kind of who you are. It's what makes you up. In math, there's what's called the additive identity property, and there's the multiplicative identity property. So for the additive identity, we're going to talk about if we have any number, let's say x, if you add 0, which is called the additive identity, what are you going to get out? You're going to get itself. Yes, that's why we call it the identity. We start with x, we add something to it, and we still get the identity x. Okay, yes, adding 0, amazingly enough. If you think about the opposite of that, subtracting 0 is going to be the same. It's not going to be any different. Now, there's what's called the, sorry, I always forget these names, the additive inverse. If we have x and we add the opposite of x, then we end up with 0. Okay, that's called the additive inverse. There are two properties for multiplication that have to do that are kind of similar. First of all, there's the multiplicative identity. If we start with x, we multiply it by 1, well, we get x back again. Okay, so multiplying by 1 is the multiplicative identity. Now, the multiplicative inverse is whatever we multiply by, it gives us 1 this time instead of 0. I know addition, it ended up being 0. So if we start with x, what do we have to multiply by to get 1 at the end? Well, if you think about it, we multiply it by x is like x over 1. Well, if we invert that, we get 1 over x. This is the multiplicative inverse. Okay? Oftentimes we call this the reciprocal also. So x over 1, multiply it by 1 over x gives you 1. Let's just try it for a second. What's the multiplicative inverse of 2/3? Well, the reciprocal of 2/3 is you take this and you just flip it on its head. It's 3/2. And if you try it, you get 6/6, which is 1. Multiplicative inverse of 4. Think about it for a moment. What's the reciprocal of 4? Well, remember it's a fraction. Multiply it by the fraction on its head, and you get 1 back again. Okay, that's the reciprocal. Okay, those are the properties of identity. Now your book goes on, and there's 2 other properties that are important, and you need to know what they mean. The first one is called the commutative property. And it helps, again, if you maybe think what commuting mean. What does commuting mean? Hey, guess what I'm doing? I'm commuting to school. First I go one way, and then when I get here, we turn around, and I go back home again, the other direction. This is commuting. Well, commuting, it means going one direction and then coming back again. Traveling to work, commuting to work, and coming back. So if I have 2 numbers, a plus b, maybe plus c, let's say. Let's just do a plus b. So if I have 2 numbers, a plus b, then that is the same thing as b plus a. First one direction, then back again. So there's what's called the additive, or the commutative property of addition. It works with addition. And there's also the commutative property of multiplication. We don't really need to put the little times sign in. When it's 2 variables, it's just ab. That's fine. So a times b equals b times a. Now think for a moment, do you think there's a commutative property of subtraction? How about division? It doesn't work that way. You know that a minus b is different than b minus a, and you know that a divided by b is different than b divided by a. So there's a one for addition, and there's a commutative property of multiplication, but that's it. Our last property is the associative property. And I had to actually hire a couple actors for this one. Think what association means. When you associate with people, what does it mean? Okay, we're associating here. Matthew, you know the game of the finals on tonight, Spurs playing Miami. Are you excited?
Yeah.
Excellent.
So, the game is on tonight at the Spurs and the Miami. They're playing basketball. Are you excited?
No, but yeah, that's cool. You know, there's a basketball game happening. I don't know what's happening, but it's basketball.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool. Sounds like a good game. Did you know that the NBA playoff game's on tonight?
Tonight?
Miami and Spurs.
I'm going to go see it. All right. Well, that was clear, wasn't it? Associative property simply means if I have 3 numbers, a plus b plus c. Well, in the normal order of operations, which 2 get added together first? It's a and b, right? It's almost like there's a parentheses, although you don't really need one around that because we go from left to right. Well, that's the same as a plus, and now we associate b plus c together. Just like in our little, vignette there, first I talked to Matthew, then Matthew talked to Grace. It's really the same as Grace talking to Matthew and Matthew talking to me. It turns out to be the same. We're all associating together. We're associating with different people. And if you try this with different numbers, let's just do 2 plus 3 plus 4 real quick. Try that. What's it add up to be? 2 plus 3 is 5. 5 plus 4 is 9, right? Well, is that the same as 2 plus 3 plus 4? 3 plus 4 is 7. 7 plus 2 is 9. And of course, 9 equals 9. Associative property is another one that works with addition and with multiplication, but it doesn't work with subtraction and division. So there's an associative property of addition and associative property of multiplication. Okay? We've gone through a number of different properties. I hope you just at least remember the three that the main ones: the identity property, the commutative property, and the associative property. All right? Okay, I'll see you tomorrow in class. You go back to whatever you were doing.